Welcome. Good morning to you all in this webinar that is organized by High Network and by the Ministry of Climate Policy and Green Growth. I still need to be a little bit acquainted to it, but it's a new name as to last Tuesday. I welcome you all. You are with almost 400 people listening into this webinar, where we will update you on the developments on the Dutch national grid for hydrogen transport. This session will be recorded, and later you can find the session back at the website of High Network. Next to that, of course, this will be an interactive webinar. First, you will be updated, but during the webinar, you can ask all questions that you have in the chat, which is next to your screen, if all is right. And please share all your questions. They will pop up somewhere in front of me, and later in the discussion we will pop them to the table and have them answered for you all. It's already about a year ago that the last webinar is held, so it's time to update you all. And since the last webinar, a lot has occurred. I think one of the most exciting steps was in October last year, where King Willem-Alexander made the start with the construction of the first part of the Dutch grid, which is, let's say, only 3 years after the first start of the development of the national grid. So actually, that was already great news. Also, and you will be updated on that, on all trajectories, the permit procedures have started in the Netherlands. So in all parts of the Netherlands, we are underway with the start of the development of the Dutch grid. And the end of last year, also the formal task, and we will tell you something more about it later, was assigned to High Network to develop this grid. So all in a couple of years' time, all these developments were up to speed. Next to that, also offshore development of the grid has made a start in last year, formally assigned this year. So about hydrogen, 4 years ago, it was still in the start. At this moment in time, actually, a lot is happening. A lot of people are involved to make this hydrogen network and also the hydrogen system make it work. It's not only about Netherlands. Also in Germany, for instance, steps have been taken. The network plan for the hydrogen network has been presented. And all steps are taken by the TSOs in Germany to develop the network and to have it ready somewhere in the next decade. And it's not only about Germany, and for instance, Belgium is also involved, but also on a European scale, the first tender of the European Hydrogen Bank was successfully concluded, meaning that some of the projects have been granted help and subsidy to make the production of hydrogen start as well. Obviously, not all can be going in the right way. Also, some delays have occurred. Biggest delays, of course, due to changed economic situation, means delay of a lot of projects, and these were announced in a couple of months, the past months, I would say. And last Friday, also the news, and we will talk about that on the Dutch part of the grid, on the Delta Rhine corridor, where also a delay has been announced, and obviously we will come back to that in this webinar. I want to introduce Herbert Kraaienbrink from the Ministry of Climate Policy and Green Growth. So welcome to this table, and Joost Hoogiem from High Network, and both they will update you on the developments, and later, and please write all your questions in the chat. We will have a talk on the follow-up and on the questions you have to inform you as much as possible on the latest developments. I would like to start with you, Herbert, to give you the floor to point out and address some of the issues you have on the development from the ministry.
Yeah, thank you very much, René. Yeah, you're practicing with our new name, and yes, to be honest, for me, myself, it's also a little bit unusual because I'm used to the Ministry of Economic Affairs, and now it's Climate and Green Growth. basically it's still about the economy. It's about making our economy sustainable, but with a little bit different perspective. And that's something new, a new cabinet, a new minister, so also new ideas. Yes, thank you very much. First of all, that I can explain something about the state of play. Where are we, and what is our agenda for the upcoming years? I prepared a small presentation, and maybe I can go through it, and
yes.
then our questions, please.
Please do so.
Yes.
I think you have the clicker, so you can
jump through I should do it myself.
The slide yourself.
You see, Ministerie van Economische Zaken, it's still an old. We are not so up to date with the screens. So I'll tell you something about some parts. So the first two parts is about the upscaling of the electrolyzer market. So the supply side. Then I will go into detail on the infrastructure, the regulation of the backbone, and the network development. So we also will talk about what you also mentioned, the Delta Rhine corridor, which is of course the latest development. But first of all, I want to start with the market of the upscaling of the electrolyzers, and I have a graph here from TNO. What you see here is basically a cost breakdown of the cost price of the estimated price of an electrolyzer. And what you see here is that there's still a big gap between the market price and the costs of electrolyzer. It consists of investment costs, the capital cost. It's also the electricity you need to buy to transform into hydrogen. And also a very important element is the net tariffs of the electricity tariffs. And this is something which is quite worrisome if we compare with a few years ago, because we see the net tariffs of electricity are rising, and this is also influencing the business case of electrolyzers in the Netherlands, also compared to other countries. You see that the orange part is basically the gap. We need to find a way to fill this gap in order to create a business case. And basically we have two options. It's either we subsidize the supply side, or we do something with the demand side, or both. And basically that's what you see in the right graph. There you see that the costs of a kilogram of green hydrogen is about, depending which country, it's between 10 and 12, 13 euro per kilogram. And we need to find a way to subsidize this. And we have a subsidy scheme, and you see there are some options. We can do a lot of CAPEX subsidy, or we can also do a lot of OPEX subsidy, or we do a combination. But in both ways, you see that we need a lot of subsidy. And luckily, we have a subsidy scheme. I will continue my... Yes.
Yeah, it's gone.
What do we have? We have, first of all, we had the IPCEI, the important projects of common European interest. We have subsidized, or at least a budget of almost 800 million euros, and we have 7 large projects have applied for a subsidy. One of them already made a FID. This is the Shell Hydrogen 1 in Rotterdam. Everybody knows this. Some other projects still waiting for FID, maybe looking how the market will develop. Last year we opened the OWE, that's the new subsidy scheme for the upscaling, with a small tender, 250 million. It's small in the hydrogen world, yes. to be honest. It's for smaller scale projects. And it was a lot of demand for this tender. we have granted 7 projects, and they are still looking for the final investment decision. This year, we will open up a new tender. This is a bigger amount, is a 1 billion euro tender, and this is also for larger scale electrolyzers. So what we try to do is to fill this gap with a lot of tenders, and there's still almost 3 billion euros budget in the climate fund, which we can use for upcoming tenders. And this should bring some impetus in the market to create a business case. As you see, we have a lot of CAPEX subsidy, and at the same time you saw there's also a lot of electricity costs. So we also need to have OPEX, operational cost subsidy, and we have also, for instance, the refinery route. Maybe it's already known by a lot of people. That
maybe you can explain. I'm not sure if everybody understands what refinery route is.
Yeah, I can imagine. So in the Renewable Energy Directive, we have an obligation on the industry, 42% should be renewable hydrogen, and also in the mobility sector it should be 1%. And it's done either by direct use of hydrogen in the mobility, or indirectly by using substituting grey hydrogen in the refineries by green hydrogen, and it's also counting for this 1% goal. And this is an important route because the refineries they are near the production center of electrolyzer, and they can be an early uptaker, so you can really catalyze this market
to grow volume.
Exactly. Yeah. And there is what we call a willingness to pay in the mobility sector. So there's less competition between big companies, so it's easier for them to pay the higher price of hydrogen. Yeah. I continue my slide. Then I go to the hydrogen backbone regulation. Everybody's, I think, aware of the decarbonization package. It's already a long time ago that the Commission issued this package, but it will be published. The final package will be published shortly. We expect it maybe just after summer or something like this. And then we have 2 years' time to implement it. So in my team, a lot of colleagues are now busy with looking how should we amend the Energiewet. It's called Energiewet. We don't have Energiewet yet. It's still in the parliament, but we expect, if you look at how the parliament has voted, that the Energiewet will be adopted very soon. I'm very optimistic about that. And then we will look what is needed to amend the Energiewet to implement the decarbonization package. And what does this decarbonization package mean? It regulates basically the infrastructure market. It regulates also the TSO for hydrogen. And it gives also an important role to ACM as a regulator of this market. And this will start in 2031. So until 2031, it's an unregulated market, but at the same time, we want you, Gasunie, already to start building, and that's what we try to solve with giving to Gasunie an obligation, a public service obligation. It's called Service of General Economic Interest, and this means that on one side we can ask or task the TSO to build the network, and at the same time we also have the ability to give a subsidy which is not state aid. And this subsidy has been granted last October, and it's the amount of 750 million. And on the other hand, we also said, okay, if we are let you build this infrastructure, we also have to take care of some market rules like the negotiated third-party access. You have to look on the tariff setting, and also some specifications, which I will look into. Also, there is a subsidy being given. It's something you don't think about when you start working on hydrogen, but there are a lot of things which are not settled yet, like measurement standards. There is no standard yet for primary for high pressure. This is also something we asked the National Metrology Institute to investigate it and to come up also together with other European member states with one standard.
Just for the perspective, this is what you explained from the Dutch perspective. I can imagine that this is also happening on the European scale. You cannot do this in isolation, I would guess.
No, certainly not. Especially, we are in close cooperation, especially with Germany. As you are also aware of Gasunie, of course, you are also a big player on this market, and also with Belgium. We have also on a European scale, we have the pentalateral forum, which is already exists for electricity and gas, and we also started this for hydrogen, where we also discuss things like the purity level, the grid expansion, projects of common interest. There are a lot of issues we need to also discuss with our member states, colleagues. So we have bilateral contacts, but also a lot of contacts on European level.
Okay.
And this is very important. Oh yeah, I have to do it myself. Sorry. Okay, on the tariffs. Basically, what I want to say here is, you see, it's in the millions. So it's 1.5 billion investment for the whole grid. What's accounted now? We have a 30 years amortization period. And if you look at all those variables, you see that we have a tariff about 38, 2020 price level, 2023 price level, it's 42 euros. And we decided to have a 50-50 split between entry-exit. So these are the assigned tariff levels for entering and exit the grid. And our subsidy, the 750 million, is also used to keep this tariff level on this low level. Because if you start building a backbone with no customers, you will have a very high tariff, and we need this subsidy also to lower this tariff. From 2031. Then we will have the regulated market, and it's not the ministry who is going to decide upon the tariff, but it's the ACM, the regulator. So from then we'll have really regulated prices.
Okay. So there's an interest to reach an efficient investment to make sure that the tariff level will remain at this level or at least not rise. That's
exactly. So we have basically a sum of the variables. You can look at the amortization period. You can make it here it's 30 years. If you make it longer, then of course this has an impact on the tariff level. It's also the subsidy, the amount of subsidy can influence, which is also very important. Is the amount of volume. The more volume, the more customers. Of course, you can divide the number by more volume, so the tariff will be lower. I think this on the tariffs. Yeah, one important element, as I already told you, when I started being head of unit of the hydrogen market, I wasn't aware about issues like purity level. This is when you go this journey, you discover, and the same for you, I think. Yeah. You discover a lot of issues. You think, okay, this is also something, but it's basically quite logical, because we need to come up with a common standard on the quality level, the purity level. And last year we had made a report which says that 98, basically there was the choice between 98 or 99.5. And we, as the Netherlands, said, okay, we would prefer 99.5 because the more pure it is, especially if hydrogen is used as a feedstock, the less costs there are to purify it on a decentral level. At the same time, you already discussed about cooperating with the neighboring states. If we have a purity level which is different from other member states, then you have sort of barrier to entry on the market because you need to do something at the border. So we try to come up with a common standard. Of course, the European Commission is also key there. But at the same time, we think we can, because we are already advanced ahead of the others, we want to influence this. So together with Germany and Belgium, we talked about how can we come up with a common standard. And I think here you also are very important that you are working on a common specification based on this high purity level. And so we can also influence this European process from the CEN. And we try to end with 99.5. I'm optimistic about that if you look at the positions of the other member states. This common specification will be by the end of the year, beginning next year, and then we can also consult market parties. And I invite you to really respond on this consultation.
Okay, thanks. And probably this will be announced on our website as well. So we'll make sure that you will be informed at the moment that the consultation starts. So good.
Okay, then I will continue. The feed-in temperature. Another element that my colleague came to me and said, we need to find a solution for the temperatures. And what? 30 degrees. For you, of course, as TSO, this is all common knowledge. But for me, as a civil servant, it's not something I think the whole day about what should be the temperature of hydrogen. But it could be an issue. From stakeholders, we heard that the temperature is now maximized on 30 degrees, and I think it's based on the gas temperature. And we need to look into this. What will be the environmental effect of hydrogen in the grid with a higher temperature? What will be the impact? Not only impact on the grid itself. You said it's steel, European steel, and
no, it's technically feasible until 50 degrees.
Yeah.
But we use the feed-in temperature at a maximum of 30 degrees now, which we also use in natural gas. But yeah, we started jointly a study to investigate whether it's feasible and possible without external negative effects to raise the feed-in temperature. Probably also not everywhere in the country, but maybe certain parts where you inject it in the grid, it's feasible to increase the temperature.
Yes, so these results will be available in autumn. We work together here, and then we need to decide what should be the max temperature, if it's possible to have a higher degree.
Yeah.
So this is coming up after the autumn. And then high regions. Basically, we're talking about the backbone and the 5 industrial regions. At the same time, what we see is that a lot of other parts of the country, the cluster 6 industry, but also on a regional level, they're also looking what is our future. If the industry, we need hydrogen infrastructure. When it's our turn, and because we also like, for instance, the brick industry, electricity, gas companies in some places, they're not all directly close to the future backbone. So we need to look into that, and basically we need to look into the regulatory issues there. What should be the role of a TSO or maybe a DSO? This is also something which should be put into the energy law. It's part of the amendment of the future energy law. And at the same time, we also need to look about how would the demand look like? Because if it's just one the party is having a future hydrogen demand, then it's quite expensive to have a direct line, or how you call it, to the backbone. But if it's a cluster, then maybe it's different. So what we do now is to look also based on the current gas use of those companies. So what could be possible future hydrogen use? What's the willingness to pay? And what's the timing? When could it be an option? So this is a desk study now. We have appointed 11 of such centers, and now we're looking into the possible potential hydrogen use in the future. And this will be studied, as I said, it's a desk study, and we'll take this with us, and we also work there with you together on this.
Okay, so this will be a continuing study. First
Yes.
results are there, and now it's for the next part.
Yes.
Which includes the energy strategies from the regions.
Exactly.
And the infrastructure, overall infrastructure development, I would imagine.
Exactly, because it's if you look at the transition, it's always it's always about electrification, the molecule use, or other options. You should never only look at one solution, and that should be integrated also in those regional approach.
Okay.
And then. Final slide, the Delta Rhine corridor. You mentioned already last week we have sent out a letter with unfortunate message that we have a delay, and not from a few months, but really 4 years. And the Delta Rhine corridor is a very important corridor because it connects the east-west connection, the Rotterdam area with Germany, but also with the storages in the north. So it's very sad news that we had to publish that this is delayed. I can really understand that a lot of market parties are disappointed, because this is, of course, news that nobody wants to hear. They have their own business case, and they need a connection with the market. So this is not good news. What we need to do now is, together, of course, with all the parties within the Delta Rhine corridor, it's Gasunie, but also TenneT and all the parts around ammoniac, need to look, okay, how can we proceed? How can we also try to get as much clarity about other risks? And I think we also need to look in solutions. What are alternatives if this delay is 4 years? Are there quicker routes? How could we investigate them in order to get as soon as possible this backbone, this whole backbone closed, so that we have this east-west route?
Okay.
That's basically my presentation. Yeah. That's where I want to start. Maybe we can discuss about.
Yeah, that would be good. So questions are coming in already. So thank you very much for that. Some of the questions are already asked, and some of them I will keep for later in this webinar. So they will come to the table later. But let's first thank you very much, Herbert, for. This explanation and presentation, and maybe for you, Joost, you can explain a little bit on what the impact will be of this decision to the development of the network.
Yes, of course. Thank you, René, and also thank you, Herbert. Because, of course, and I will put on the first slide. Oh, sorry. Yes, this one. To continue on the Delta Rhine corridor, of course, as High Network, we are also disappointed because it's disappointing because it's a really important piece of the puzzle to actually develop the hydrogen market in the Netherlands and in northwestern Europe. And of course, we are in a hurry with hydrogen. So we have tried to find ways to reduce complexity, to reduce the risks. So we are actually a bit disappointed that this permitting procedure, this integral permitting procedure, will cost so much time before we can actually start to construct the infrastructure that we need. I took a picture of our network, and the Delta Rhine corridor is highlighted here in orange. I hope everyone at home also can see it. And it shows the importance of this Delta Rhine corridor, because it's not only the connection from west to east, so a corridor from the west towards Germany, and to reach the north and the storage that Gasunie is also developing there. No, it's also really important that first part, starting in Rotterdam, is also needed to reach the North Sea Canal area, and also needed to reach the southwestern part of the Netherlands and Belgium. So it's a really important, it's the most important piece to come from regional networks in the industry clusters where we started, to an interconnected network in the Netherlands and connections with neighboring countries. So it's a really important piece of the puzzle. And of course, we need to determine also as HyNetwork what this means for our schedule in total, what this means for the rollout plan. We need to figure out if there are faster alternatives, because of the importance of this piece of the puzzle, we are still figuring out what alternatives can be developed faster. Are there any natural gas pipelines that we can convert earlier? Are there any new build routes that we can find that we can develop faster? But of course, also there, we have permitting lead times as well. Also, I think important to say is that we consulted the rollout plan last year. We've submitted also the rollout plan, the revised rollout plan, after consultation of the market, also to the minister. It was never published, not for no reason, because of course this choice we had to make in the Delta Rhine corridor had impact on this rollout plan. So that's why it will never see the daylight probably. So we need to update this rollout plan, and we expect that together with the ministry we can have a new rollout plan by the end of the year. But the main consequence now is if we don't find any faster alternatives, the regional networks in the industry clusters will be there longer before they are interconnected into the entire grid.
Maybe to ask a question which is, let's say, quite obvious and coming from the audience at once. Could this not be foreseen? Why does it happen now? We already a couple of years on the way.
I think the scope was not entirely stable also with the modalities that are part of this Delta Rhine corridor. So we started off with hydrogen and CO2, but now we also have ammonia and the DC cables. And that makes this project even more complex than when we started. And of course, when you start a project, everything is high level. But once you start working on the details, you see also complexity increasing. So I think that's what we found out together with the partners in the last period.
And also coming in. Are you looking for technical alternatives for this corridor of pipelines, or
technical alternatives?
That's basically the question that is coming in.
I think I completely agree with Joost that we need to look what's best for the market, and we should look for alternative trajectories, if it's possible. I think that's what's always good, to have alternatives. And look what's the time frame of those alternatives. I think if that's meant by technical alternatives, I completely agree that we should be creative in looking at what's possible to have this connection as soon as possible restored or built.
And of course, we've been looking at alternatives. We've even started in the highway phase of developing hydrogen infrastructure for the Netherlands. We've been looking at alternatives. So we only have to now figure out, is it really faster if we are starting it up now? Because we've done a lot of work in the Delta Rhine corridor already. But for any alternative, you have to start from scratch again. Of course, we have studied on alternatives, but yeah, we have to start the project actually. And can you then speed up and be faster than the option we now have in the Delta Rhine corridor?
So I think you should do both. You there's a Dutch saying, never throw away your old shoes before you have new ones. And this is the route we are now going. And at the same time, of course, you should be always looking for alternatives, but not say, okay, let's do something else and leave this. So this is the way forward. And at the same time, of course, you should always be creative.
Okay, and just for my understanding, also based on questions coming in, basically the complexity of the corridor is big,
Yes.
and reducing that complexity is not easy. Is that the way to frame it, or is it?
I think the complexity is big, and to be honest, maybe we underestimated the complexity, and that's always something. What you see when you start a transition, start something what you haven't done before, that you learn. And I think what we should do now is learn from what's happened now, and look how can we improve things, how can we speed up things, how can we look at the governance of having such a complex project with multimodal transport grids, always easy in hindsight to say, okay, why haven't we seen these elements? So, but I think we need to be honest. Say, okay, this was more complex than thought. How can we learn from this? How can we improve the process? And look also at the same time, are there alternatives? Are there other options to speed up the grid? I think that's the way forward.
Okay. Let's leave this for now and maybe continue with the development of the rollout plan. Can you enlighten us on those developments?
I took another picture of the network showing the status of the 15 trajectories we have in the rollout plan. And like you said, René, also in your introduction, I think great news is that we actually started this April in construction of Rotterdam. We also see that it has positive effects also for potential customers who see that we are actually building the network and they want to join. So that's actually really good news. Also good news, I think, for the northern part of the Netherlands, where we are also developing the infrastructure over there. We progressed in the permitting procedure there. So the concept preferred alternative is currently available for consultation. And we've also started some early construction works already to connect some of the natural gas pipelines that we are going to convert to hydrogen pipelines, so that we can work faster, safer, and more cost effectively when actually starting the construction there. So that's also good news. Also in the North Sea Canal area, permitting process is going well. We've started also, we've published the concept preferred alternative there, and we will soon start also detailed design. And then in the southwestern part of the Netherlands, in Zeeland, also working on finalizing the basic designs. And yeah, it's a terrible to translate this into English, but the NRD has been established there, so it's an important step in the permitting procedure. And also in Limburg and Gemmelot, which is part of phase 2 of the rollout plan, we've already started the assessment phase. It will be a lot of converted natural gas pipelines over there, and we are exploring which one fits best to be used for hydrogen. And the connecting parts between the industry clusters are mostly in the early assessment or concept select phase. So we've also started preparation there. I think also important is the cross-border functionality of the network to connect Germany and Belgium. Last year, Gasunie also signed some MOUs with, for example, Spain to develop corridors towards the Netherlands, also corridors from the Netherlands towards Germany. And we are closely working together with Fluxys to develop the first border crossings with Belgium, and also with some of the German TSOs to develop the border crossings first in Vlieghuis and later in Oude Statenzijl. And I think that's on the technical part of the progress that we are actually developing all these parts of the network and progressing in the permitting. Another part is the trilogue process that we got into a new phase, I think, by publishing the 1.0 version of the contractual framework. We've developed together with the representative organizations, so FMW and Energie NL, and also together with the ministry as an observer to develop this first version of this contractual framework. And with the publication of this first version, it will go into a new phase.
So that's the trilogue that High Network together with ministry and the market parties develop these contracts.
These contracts. So the connection agreements and the transport agreements, including the annexes and the pipe flex.
Okay.
What's also, I think, important to tell is that so far we've started all activities that are on the critical path. So there's nothing we didn't do, which we should do to at least keep the planning on track. And on the critical path for these infrastructure projects is, of course, the permitting process. It has long lead times, so it's the biggest part of our critical path. Of course, after that, the lead times for the materials and the construction times are on the critical path. But so far, only in Rotterdam we are in construction already. What we see on the permitting procedures is that we see that in practice it will take approximately 3 to 4 years to have the permits irrevocable. Instead of the 1.5 year that we took into consideration in the Highway 27 study. So what we see is that this permitting procedure will actually take more time. And that's not so good news. And besides that it takes longer, we also see that we have other challenges, I think, together. We all have a shortage of resources needed for permitting, not only within the Gasunie company, but also with our engineering partners, but also government bodies who have challenges on resources, but also the weather. The last half year, the weather was so wet that we need to do a lot of work in the field for research purposes of the underground, we could not enter the lands while it was too wet. So we could not enter the lands with heavy equipment to do these researches. So yeah, it's challenging.
It's challenging. Yeah, maybe not everybody realizes that permit procedures is not only paperwork,
No,
but it's also actual investigation to understand where you're going to construct what and what it does to the environment, for instance, in direct environment. So.
yeah. So the planning is under pressure. Yeah.
Yes, and maybe this is about the planning, and then the next step, how can you get connected? There are also developments over there. You already mentioned the assignment that High Network got, so maybe you can explain something about how this process works at this moment in time.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because what we see is that we have more than 20 customers already who signed a connection study agreement. So we are working together with these parties to actually study on their connection, prepare them to be connected to the highways, as we sometimes call the main network. So that's really positive.
It's a detailed study to understand. It's not just a kind of corridor. It's really looking what's necessary to do this.
Yeah. It's really up until the basic design of the connection, the planning of the connection, the alternative routes for the connection, the planning of the connection. Of course, every connected customer also needs a robust plan, a robust schedule of High Network. When is my connection ready? When can I use it? That's of course really important. So far, 20 to 30 customers already signed this connection study agreement, which is great. But 1 year ago, I think we expected the market to develop a bit faster. So it's also, you told also René in your introduction that we see, of course, in the news the last half year, also projects in the hydrogen delaying. We see the same, of course. Some potential customers are hesitant to take the next step together with us. And to be able to start also construction in the next 3 industry clusters, which we want to develop in the northern Netherlands and in the North Sea Canal area, and also in the southwestern part of the Netherlands. Yeah, in the beginning of next year, the first half of next year, we need to take even the next step with some customers to actually go to an investment agreement and transport agreements. So that when we build the network, also it will be used, and actually hydrogen is starting to flow there. So if you see the development in the market and the development and the challenging schedules in the projects, that you see the market is delaying a bit, but also the infrastructure is delaying a bit. So what we really need is to form a coalition in these industry clusters to actually match our schedules together. We need at least one customer who is going to put hydrogen in the system. We need at least one customer who is going to take off the hydrogen. And we need, of course, the infrastructure. And all that should be finished together to actually start up the first part of hydrogen infrastructure in the industry clusters. So happy to facilitate also to bring these coalitions together. What we also see, of course, is that customers need reliable schedules of us. So in the past, we always communicated the deterministic plans. So whenever everything goes right, then the network will be finished at a certain date. But of course, a lot of things can happen, as we've talked about already. So there are risks in every project schedule. And we will start communicating not only the deterministic schedule of these individual parts of the network on our website, but we will also make a step in communicating the probabilistic schedules. So the P50 and P90 numbers, so that you will see a range within where we will develop the infrastructure.
So it's actually better insight in what you can expect, what let's say the normal progress would be, and what can happen in projects, especially of course in something new, and we need to set up a new line for hydrogen for hydrogen market. So it's not just one part of the puzzle, but it's all.
Yeah. And the rollout plan is now 3 phases with some years on it. We will start communicating on the 15 individual parts of the network and the expected dates that they will be ready for operation.
Yeah, then maybe I can dive in with some direct questions basically for that. Because it's very interesting, of course, for the viewers to know when. So it's good to understand the why and what happens, but also when is it? And I'm not sure if you already have it, but I will just pose the questions to you. The 2 questions basically. One is going, when will the Dutch system be connected to the German system? And second, when will the storage be connected to, let's say, all the industry clusters in Netherlands?
Yeah, and I think that's the most important 2 questions you can ask at this moment, and they are all connected to the Delta Rhine corridor. Since I already explained, that's the most important piece of the puzzle for the interconnected system and the connections towards Germany and Belgium. And we've decided we need some time until autumn this year to look at alternatives, but also to create a schedule for this integrated permitting procedure in the Delta Rhine corridor, because it's now announced in the letter that it is somewhere around 2032 with a lot of unknowns and risks surrounding that. So also a robust schedule must be created for this integrated approach for this Delta Rhine corridor to actually to be able to communicate when this connection will be available. But we are also looking at schedules of alternatives, and we have to make a decision on that. So we will take the time during summer to be able to say something to the market in autumn, and then work forwards together with the ministry also to publish a new rollout plan for the network somewhere around the end of this year.
Yeah, so basically an update on the when can only be given after this study that needs to be done and expected by autumn. Maybe not the years, but at least the next steps and the options that are on the table.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So maybe we can also make a step towards the connection policy and process, since we've received the final Service of General and Economic Interest from the government for our task as High Network, and upon receiving that, I will switch to another. Upon receiving the formal assignment, we are already required actually to act as if we are a regulated company. So we are also required to act in a non-discriminatory manner. So that's why we developed a connection policy to actually also tell the market how we will provide this connection service in a non-discriminatory manner to the market. So first of all, who do we connect? At this moment, we focus on connecting all industry in the 5 major clusters. We also focus on connecting power plants in the clusters. And we also focus on connecting industry in the so-called cluster 6. You already mentioned also from the High Regions study that was executed. What is important to stress is that connecting customers also takes time and resources, but must not lead to any delay of the highways in our network. So that will be a balancing act, because in the first years the focus will be mainly on building these highways, and some of the launching customers we will be able to connect. And later in time, there will be less highways to develop and more capacity also for connecting customers. And one point also regarding the connection of intended regional grids. I think that's something also the ministry has to decide on. Market structuring of these public or private initiatives for regional networks. So that's something that's also really important for us to have some clarity on in the coming months or years.
Yeah, maybe you can join in. Of course, this is also part of the whole implementation of decarbonization package.
Yeah.
My colleague Wouter Schaaf is project leader of this implementation project, and of course we are happy also to have a consultation procedure on all those issues later on this year, to gather information on what are the options and alternatives.
Okay, that sounds very good.
Yeah, we've also in drawing up this connection policy consulted, of course, the ministry. Then on this policy, how does it work? I took a picture to illustrate it, because we make a distinction between client connections and network expansions. And what is a client connection? Client connection is a connection that only one customer uses. So it's dedicated for hydrogen transport towards that customer, only used by that customer. And the initial investment costs of that connection will be carried by that customer. It will be charged directly to the customer. And the cost of management, operations and maintenance will be charged periodically, so annually probably. On the picture that I took, you see these light blue parts that are the client connections in this connection policy. But of course, it's not always good to. I took another picture to show this. If we give every customer its own connection, and sometimes one customer can have a really long connection, but his neighbor also needs a connection, and that neighbor also needs a connection. If they all have their own long client connection, that will be really inefficient and ineffective, and will certainly not help develop the hydrogen market. So that's why we introduced the concept of a network expansion, which you will see on the right, is that we actually develop part of our main infrastructure so that we are able to give the customers a shorter and also cheaper client connection. But if we add this network extension, we must make sure when we build that network expansion that the tariff will not increase as a result of adding that network expansion. So we will have an economic requirement that the tariff will not rise by adding this network expansion.
Okay, just to make sure for other customers that they will not be impacted by this expansion.
Yeah. Okay. So that's, I think, important to tell.
Okay. Thanks very much. Questions are still coming in. So I was just too late for one of the questions, but maybe you can go back with 2 slides.
Yeah.
And there are just a general remark.
This one?
No, another one. Sorry.
Another one back?
Yeah, with the network. With the
okay.
network,
Yes.
This one. First of all, there are light and dark blue colors. And one of the questions is, what is the difference between them? So that's why I want to have this on screen again, so everybody can see it again.
It's a good question, since I asked the same question when I saw this graph for the first time. It's only to make a distinction between the 15 parts. So we started with dark blue, then light blue, then dark blue, then light blue. So there's not...
It could have been the other way around.
It could have been the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that's a clear answer. Maybe also a part of some confusion is talking about the alternatives. The alternatives, I think you mentioned, are alternative routes for the pipelines. They are also taken as alternatives for the network. Maybe you can explain what with alternatives is meant. Is it alternative transport for the network instead of the network, or is it alternative routes instead of, for instance, the DRC corridor at this moment in time?
Of course, as High Network, we look at alternatives for infrastructure, so alternative routes. But of course, you can also think of other alternatives to get energy from A to B, green.
But for us, the study to alternatives, and together with you, will be for alternative corridors or trajectories, instead of this, or maybe to speed up the network development since the delay of DRC.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe continuing with the explanation you did on the connections, are connections always unidirect, or can they have bi-directional connections as well in the system? This is only going from a producer to the network, from an off-taker from the network to the off-taker. Can it be bi-directional as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's technically possible to have a bi-directional connection.
Okay,
yes.
so that can be arranged in the system. Okay,
Yeah.
That's good. It's all kinds of questions coming in. I'll try to...
Maybe I can meanwhile do one call to the audience as well, since we would like the situation on the right. For us, it's really efficient to develop parts, geographical parts of the network with extensions and customers. So I think it's important also for customers to call your neighbors and jointly call us, since if we can connect a bundle of customers in one geographical area, we can study on that specific geographical area, and we can also construct it much more efficiently. We can also get the permits much more efficiently. So I think it's really important. Call your neighbors and then call us, and then we can figure out together how to develop that part of the country and connect.
Because you mentioned is efficient from our side, but what you explained earlier, it's also efficient for the customers because they can, let's say, kind of share the investment rather than only have the investments for themselves. It can be of their interest as well.
It can be a win-win situation to figure out what we can solve with next network expansions and reduce the scope of client connections as well.
It's a lot of questions are obviously coming in around the change planning, if you like, with the network. So I will just pose them to both of you, and we'll see who picks it up. First, coming, and that's not so strange given earlier presentations, are Eemshaven and Germany now prioritized above Dutch Western ports, so above Rotterdam, Zeeland, and Amsterdam. So will the priority be to the eastern part of the Netherlands. Is that something you can say about?
Now, currently, we are not prioritizing.
Okay.
So all industry clusters have their dedicated teams, have their own progress in the permitting procedures. Of course, we see a difference in market development and market commitment possibilities in the different industry clusters. But we are really doing our best in all the industry clusters to actually find an entry customer, an exit customer, and make this regional network actually work.
Okay, so
in the startup phase. So at this moment, we are not prioritizing anywhere. No,
that's clear.
No, and from my perspective, in our subsidy schemes, we don't prioritize on regions. So it's a non-discriminatory tender. At the same time, you see that of course, if you are near shore, near the production of wind, that's of course something which discriminates against coastal production sites. Okay. But that's not east, west, north. That's just in general.
So in general, yes, of course, the easier to be connected areas can be easier or faster developed, if you like.
Yes,
that's basically
exactly.
what you say. That's,
it's not that we have a geographical map that we say this.
Well, one of the questions coming back several times is again on the Delta Rhine corridor. That's of course the latest news, I would say. So, could there be any option to only focus on the hydrogen and CO2 pipeline in that corridor, or is that not an option? We already talked about the complexity of the system. Complexity could not be reduced, as earlier said, but is there any option to do that? Is that possible or not? Yeah.
We have looked, of course, in all the options before we have sent out this letter, and also we discussed it with the Landsadvocaat and also with our own legal service. And the permitting procedure, if you have entered it with multimodal pipelines, and then you just continue with one or two without saying something about the others, then you can expect that within this process, questions will be asked about, okay, what about the others? So if you cannot ignore it. Once you started this procedure with a multimodal system, you also need to be able to respond on questions about the others. So that's
so it's basically not an option at this moment in time. That's
exactly
the conclusion.
Yeah. Okay. But of course we have looked to that.
Yeah, and to add, I think for hydrogen we only need in this entire Delta Rhine corridor we only need 130 kilometers out of the 270 kilometers of route for that entire project. We need only the first 130 kilometers for hydrogen, because the rest can be refurbished natural gas pipelines. So of course you can imagine that if you need a permit for 130 kilometers, it will be different from 270 kilometers. And since we now have to do this permitting procedure jointly for all the 4 modalities that are currently in scope, we have to get the permits for 270 kilometers.
Oh, that's I think a clear explanation on what the situation at this moment in time is.
And we of course would have loved to see that hydrogen could go first. Since we need these 130 kilometers.
Yeah, but that's what my understanding is, that everybody would have loved that this development would be faster. So but this is apparently the situation. Maybe a kind of follow up on that, and for both of you, what would be the impact on the willingness to invest on hydrogen assets, either production or offtake, in light of the delay in general in the end. Do you have any feel about that?
To be honest, of course, we are looking into this. We also have an import strategy where the Port of Rotterdam is not only an asset for the Netherlands, but also for Germany, for instance. So this is also impacting, of course, investments in the import terminals. And basically what you see is, we will have a delay, and it's also a delay on access to parts of the market. Of course, there's also a local market in the Rotterdam area. There are off-takers. We talked about the refineries. But at the same time, the sooner you will have connection to the whole market, the more liquidity there is in the market, the more demand. So it definitely improves the business case. So that's sure. So it really depends, I think, on every particular project. What is his investment planning? When does he or she want to be on site? Is it in 2031 or is it 2028? So this is of course. And what is the first market? Is it a regional market or is it already directly foreseen in Germany? So that could impact, of course, the business case.
It could impact, but depend a little bit on the extent of the projects, local, regional, national, international.
Exactly.
It depends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we see the same. We have, of course, a big commercial database, and of course, our team is also figuring out what will this mean for the development of the hydrogen market capacity-wise. And you see that mainly the bigger players, they actually need to reach other industry clusters or other countries to be able to get their project and business cases sound. So that will be really challenging for the market. So we will expect some serious delays in the markets and in big projects that we actually need to get this market up and running.
Okay. Another view on the development of the grid is the obligation that Netherlands has on the use of green hydrogen in the future, which is developed in the RED III, where also is looked at options for the time that network is not available, how you can overcome that obligation and in a different way. What would be the impact on that one? If you look at what's happening now, most likely 2030 is not the date that the network is available and everybody can have access to green hydrogen, for instance. What would be the impact for that?
Basically, we have, if you talk about obligations, we have the obligation for the mobility, as I explained earlier, the 1%. I can't foresee it completely, but I do hope, because most of the refineries are in those areas, also, of course, in Zeeland refinery, but I can't oversee it completely, but maybe it's not firstly impacted. If you look at the industry obligation, we have sent a letter to the Parliament before the end of May. There we have said, okay, we will come up with a consultation, and new minister should decide upon how it should look like. So that's, to be honest, a little bit too early for me. The minister has just started this week, but we are looking into how this obligation, how it could look like, and how the consultation could be. And of course, you need to take into account the physical connection, the physical possibility of having supply. That's of course always if should be taken into account, but it's
too early days.
Too early to say something about that.
Yeah,
but it's, of course, we will be looking into this.
Okay. Then let's see, maybe going back to the purity of the network. You mentioned the 98 and 99.5%, and actually this is for high network. Is there any preference on what the outcome of the purity discussion would be?
Well, in the end, I think it's important what our customers need, and I think most customers would want the higher purity level of hydrogen. So that's why we also at this moment work closely together with European TSOs to actually develop this specification for the purity level of hydrogen based on this 99.5%. Since it's both technically feasible, also for repurposed natural gas pipelines, also this 99.5% is feasible. So I think for us, the main preference is that we really align with other TSOs in Northwestern Europe. I think that's the most important. So, and whether it's 98 or 99.5, as long as it's the same in the Northwestern Europe. But we believe that 99.5 is also from the perspective of the market. I think better to have to avoid decentralized facilities to increase purity levels at the customer end. So
because basically from a customer perspective, it means that you need to have cleaning in another place in the network. That's the main technical difference.
That's the main technical difference. Can you do it more centralized at the production or the entry site? Or do you do it decentralized? And of course, some of the customers will need to increase purity levels also with the 99.5%. But I think main importance is alignment in Northwestern Europe.
We do agree.
You do agree.
Yeah. That's something good to say.
That's nice here at the table that you both agree to this. Already you explained something about the subsidies. I think money is a very important part of the development of the hydrogen market at this moment in time. You explained the OWE subsidy scheme. There are some questions coming in on that. And one is that, can you have subsidies for Dutch projects that deliver to Germany? Is that an option under the OWE?
Yes, it's not. I think it's even forbidden in the European state aid scheme to forbid export of. And the same thing also happens in the electricity market with the SDE or the other. So it's not forbidden to look for customers out of Europe.
Okay, so basically it's a level playing field. Everybody can get that subsidy under the right conditions, and okay, so that's very good opportunity for all projects. But then coming to a risk that somebody sees that with underbidding on the project. So what could happen if you underbid on the subsidy, but you never reach an FID? You basically capture money subsidy that nobody then in the end gets. Is there a risk for such underbidding in the system?
There's always you need to find a balance between having sort of competition, and on the other hand, you have the winner's curse. The one who had the lowest bid maybe has a problem with his business case. So, and what you try to do is to also come up with also RVO or agencies. Of course, we are looking. Okay, what are the assignments? What do you need to show? What kind of permitting you already need to have before you get a subsidy granted? Otherwise, of course, you could have gaming that people think, okay, let's do a low bid and let's see what happens. So we try to prevent that as much as possible. Okay. And in the same time, I think that's what we also have seen in the IPCEI subsidy scheme, that especially in these markets where a lot of things are changing, I mean, all predictions are changing, it's sometimes very hard to predict all costs. So, and also the timing of projects. So what we have, for instance, have done, we have prolonged the period that they could make an FID, because if you come up with a bid, you don't have perfect information. So sometimes things are changing. So that's. But we need to find a balance between having an honest and non-discriminatory, transparent tendering system, and at the same time also having projects being made and that we have FIDs.
Okay, so that's you
We try to strike
try
this
to get a
balance.
fair play.
Exactly.
That's basically the idea. That's very good. Money is a topic that keeps people sharp. So you also explained about the tariffs that are now public. The tariffs were based on a number of gigawatts being transported through the system. What would happen if that number would not be reached at some moment in time? Can you elaborate on that?
I think it's too early to say what will happen, because basically what's happening if you have less volume and you have the same capital costs, of course, then that would be a push on the tariffs. And at the same time, there are a lot of mechanisms which could be used to solve. You could look at the amortization period. It's now 30 years. If you have prolonged it, then you can also spread the capital cost. You could look at the subsidy. You could increase it, or you could look how to use it differently. You could look at intertemporal cost allocation, so that you in the future, when we expect higher volumes, maybe you could look how can we have sort of part of the cost of today, bring it to the future when there is more volume than expected. So there are a lot of mechanisms to look how to keep the tariffs low, also in new circumstances.
And what I understand from this, the aim is to support the development of the hydrogen market with instruments, and not to block them somewhere. No. And not all situations can be dealt with at the beginning. You also need to see how it develops.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's I think clear.
And maybe to add, of course, if we invest a lot of money in a network or in parts of the network that are not being used, you will increase your capital costs, but you haven't sold any capacity on that trajectory. So that's why we are also stressing as High Network that we actually want to see some market commitment. So to avoid to put in assets in our asset base that will not be used, because we want the infrastructure to be there before the market needs it, but not way before the market needs it. So that's also something really important. And we do this also to prevent this tariff jump when the regulation period starts. And the tariff will be based on the actual parameters that are now fixed in this formula.
I think that's a clear answer for.
Maybe also to add, we are looking at, of course, at the renewable hydrogen market, electrolyzers, and we see delays, higher costs. The coalition agreement also talked about blue hydrogen, and we see that also the electricity gas production has targets to become CO2 neutral. Also in Germany, they're looking into blue hydrogen. Also, this autumn we will go to Norway on a state visit. So we're also looking in the way how to open up this, increase the blue hydrogen market, and this could also add volume to the infrastructure. So you should not only look at the 4 gigawatts electrolyzer. That's part of the market, but you should look at it in a broader perspective.
Okay.
So there are also a lot of new opportunities coming in.
Okay,
And I
that's
think
good
that's
to
a
understand.
positive
Yeah.
development.
Yeah.
So we are very open to also to blue hydrogen. It's also what we have written in our letter, and also our minister in the summit in Rotterdam mentioned this. We have a climate target, so we need to look at all alternatives.
Okay. And for a high network, it doesn't matter what molecule to transport, what color it has.
In the end, it doesn't matter, but of course, we want to reach this carbon neutral energy system of the future. That's why we are all in this together, I think. So the main goal is to get there together. But if we can't get there straight by only using the green hydrogen route, I think it's really good that we find a way to get there through blue hydrogen. I think that's
Okay.
that's good. A good
It can be done.
development.
It's the next step. Coming to the last questions, maybe a shorter one. Can guarantees being given for the connections to the network, to the end users or to the producers on the timing?
Schedule-wise,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that's what I tried to explain already. That we see, of course, that the customer wants to know what is the reliability of the schedule you give me. If we agree on a date, what is the chance that you actually deliver on that date and that I can actually use my connection on that date? So that's why I said we will, until now we communicated the deterministic schedules, but we will now also add the probabilistic schedules, and we will give the customers also insights in the P50 and the P90. So we also quantify the planning risks and make them visible.
So you try to give a better the impression of what the schedule is and what the uncertainties are.
Yeah, and I can only give 100% guarantee at the moment that the connection is actually finished, because there are always risks. There are risks in the permitting procedures. There are risks in the construction. So everyone who is in the business of executing projects knows there are always risks. What we try to do is to quantify them and to make them visible to the customers.
Then coming to the last question. Is Netherlands losing its window opportunity for hydrogen development? It's not sure who wants to go first with this, but to ask it to both of you.
Maybe I will start first. I think definitely not. If you look where we started in 2020, of course, maybe we're a little bit naive, ambitious, and where we are now, that's incredible. I cannot imagine any other market where we have put so many energy, money, efforts, and where we are today. So maybe if you say, okay, it will not be 4 gigawatts, but if it will be some less, it's still an enormous what we have done. I discussed the subsidy schemes, what we have, the billions, also the speed we had with the assignment of you as a TSO. I can't think of any country around us who's faster than we are. And what you, of course, see, if you're ambitious and you say, let's do this, you're also the first who bumps maybe into issues. And that's normal. We have seen this also in the offshore sector and also the photovoltaics. Because also you had periods that, okay, this is expensive or it's easy. But then you overcome it. So, no, I don't believe that we are losing it. But of course, you need always be agile. You always need to look, okay, what's different now? As, for instance, we talked about blue. It could be maybe also in the transition. We are looking, of course, at the hydrogen bank of the Commission, at results. You see, of course, electricity is cheaper maybe in the south, but there's no market there. So you need to of course, be agile, look at new opportunities, look what's working, try to improve. And we're still, I think, with the knowledge base, with the supply side here, with the off-takers, also the connection with Germany, we're still in a very good position. We will have some delay. And at the same time, I can imagine that there will also be delay on other projects in other member states. So it's not one thing, but I maybe we should look really into is the electricity network costs. That's a Dutch thing. That's not only for electrolyzers, but also for the industry. That's also something I don't have a solution for. Unfortunately not, but we are looking also, it's called an IBO, Intergovernmental Policy Investigation, and it will come up in February with a report how could you deal with the rising cost of the electricity grid. That's maybe something what would say, okay, this could impact the production part of electrolyzers compared to other member states. But in general, I think we did an enormous job. We're not there yet. I mean, you discussed all the risk and the chicken-egg issues, and that's also part of the game. If you start something new, you need to go through this phase. You need to kill some darlings. You need to adopt new ones.
I think basically you say all reasons to remain optimistic.
Exactly.
Yes,
continue.
there are setbacks, but there are lots of reasons to be optimistic.
And that's also something. I think the change of a new cabinet's always because this is about money. It's about. But I'm also there very optimistic. If I look in the coalition agreement, it's also mentioned. We were named climate policy and green growth. Basically, that's what we're talking about today. This is green growth. This is also about giving a future to the industry and also the mobility sector in the Netherlands. And therefore, I truly believe that it's still we're still having a winning game and we should go ahead.
Thanks. And for you, last remark.
Yeah, I think we need to fix things which we bump into in our journey to this new energy system, sustainable energy system. So I think we should keep working on finding solutions for the things we bump into. So if it's permitting lead times, we need to figure out how to solve it. We really need our customers who stick their necks out to be helped in whatever way. To actually keep sticking their neck out and taking the first step, because that's really important, of course, to help these launching customers. Because if they don't start up the market, then we will be nowhere. And I think it would be a shame if we as a country lose our hub function in the energy system of Northwestern Europe because of things we could or should have fixed. So let's try to do that together. I think that's important.
If I may summarize, if we continue cooperating, we will get there and we will not lose the opportunity. So,
exactly.
I think cooperation is key.
Yeah. I want to thank you, Herbert, and thank you, Joost, very much for being here and sharing with us all the views and update on the policies, on the network. And of course, I want to thank you, the viewers of today. I hope this webinar was interesting and you got the information that you required. A lot of questions have been asked. Maybe not all questions have been answered. So if you believe that questions are still open, I would like to invite you to share those questions in an email to High Network so we can pick them up after this webinar. I tried to do my best to go through all the questions, but there were a lot. Maybe for you to understand, the webinar will be or is recorded and will be put to the website, as will be the connection policy that will also be shared on the website somewhere next week. So you can look it up how it looks like at that moment in time. And last but not least, thanks very much for being here. I hope you have a very pleasant and wonderful day and hope to see you next time again.